The United States Political System Made Easy. Politics 101, EKU Fall 2018 Semester. Created by Kelly Nolan, Michael Ensminger, Caitlin Brandstutter, Justin Kendrick, and Jared Lanehart. Our prompt question was to explain our government to a person who has no prior knowledge of it. Describe the United States political system as well. Describe the role of its citizens, the three branches of government, and linkage institutions. In this presentation, I will be discussing the rights and responsibilities of the citizens of the United States, the branches of government, and linkage institutions. Below, we've added a quote that states, "We are a nation bound not by race or religion, but by the shared values of freedom, liberty, and equality." And this quote comes from the United States Citizen Immigration Services. So the roles of the United States citizens. The United States government is set up so that it has a direct impact on its citizens. In a democracy, power is drawn from the citizens, meaning that they are sovereign. Sovereign means that one possesses power. The government has created responsibilities and roles specifically for its citizens, which we will discuss in a moment. Through the use of this, it creates a more equal and stable country which is beneficial to everyone. United States citizen rights. So these rights were established by the Bill of Rights and our Constitution to protect the citizens' rights from government interference. This means that the government cannot just come in and take the citizens' rights away. These rights are written into the Constitution for a reason, so that history does not repeat itself. So these rights include freedom of speech, religious freedom, right to a fair trial of your peers, the right to vote, the right to run for office, the right to bear arms, protection against unreasonable search and seizure, protection against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment, and protection from self-incrimination. The first right we will be discussing about is the freedom of speech. This is found in the First Amendment, and it says, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedoms of speech or of the press." This right means that a citizen of the United States has the right to express any opinions without censorship or government interference. Censorship can mean that the government controls what you see on the news, on internet, on what you can say, on what you can read. And the United States doesn't have this. A good comparison of a country that does would be North Korea. So, government interference also means that there could be a fine or jail time, but because we have the freedom of speech, the government cannot do that for United States citizens when they express their opinion on a subject or they disagree with what the government's doing. Now, this does not mean that one can imply they will hurt others or have threats against the government. However, it does protect citizens' views. So you cannot go and have death threats saying that you are going to kill the president or that you're going to do a terrorist attack on the country. That isn't protected. But say you just disagree with politics and you say, "I don't agree with that, I don't like that," then that's okay. But anything harmful to where it would hurt or kill other people, that's not okay. So religious freedom. It is stated in the First Amendment that citizens are free to worship any type of religion in public and private without the fear of persecution. The reason for this was to keep religion out of the government so that every citizen can be treated equal regardless of their religious beliefs. Religious freedom also means that a citizen may change their religion as many times as they would like without getting fined or receiving jail time. Now, this is important because citizens want religion kept out of government so that every citizen, regardless of their religious status, can be treated the same. One that is a Christian does not deserve to be treated better than one that is a Muslim. And that's why religious freedom is so important in the United States, because they want every single citizen to be created equal because they have these rights as a human being. So next is the right to a fair trial. And this right was stated in the Sixth Amendment. This is where the term innocent until proven guilty comes from. This means that citizens are guaranteed the right to a public trial, a lawyer to defend them, and an impartial jury. This also means that you have a right to know who is accusing and pressing charges against you. So this is really important because this has saved a lot of innocent people from going to jail, but it also has its downsides. because someone can be guilty of a crime, but they're still innocent until there is enough evidence supported to prove that they're guilty. But this is the best way that the United States has found to do this in the legal system. So the next right we will be discussing is the right to vote. This right is stated in many different amendments. The 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. The 19th Amendment, issued in 1920, gave women the right to vote, which is revolutionary for women's rights. And voting is important to the American citizens because it gives the people a voice. This way they can choose who they want to run their government, and this makes citizens feel valued and know they have power in their country. And the best and most best way to run a government in a country is for sure that the citizens feel involved. They want to feel involved in their country. They want to feel involved in their government. They want to feel like they have a choice in who is going to be running this, who is going to make sure that their lives are safe, who they feel most comfortable with leading them. So it was a very important right because they didn't have this when they was under English rule. They had a king, and kings was hereditary, or if somebody come in and conquered, then that was the king. There was no voting here. So this was very revolutionary to the Americans. Next is the right to bear arms, and this right is found in the Second Amendment, and it states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Now this has caused many debates and has been under major scrutiny over the last few years with the rise of school shootings in the United States, especially as these shootings are getting more and more frequent, and many people feel as though this right should be taken away. So this amendment was originally created to give citizens of the United States the option of defending themselves and fighting back in different situations, because when this amendment was created, they thought of how the king could take away their weapons and anything, and it was really difficult for them because, with the Revolutionary War. So this was very important to the Founding Fathers to establish this in our Constitution. So protection against unreasonable search. This is stated in the Fourth Amendment, and it says, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." This is extremely important because while under British rule, the king could order at any moment for a person to be seized and searched. So he didn't have to have evidence against you. If he didn't like you, he could have somebody come in and take your things and put you in jail. So it kind of ties in with the part to the right to a fair trial, because this government was created to be totally different than English rule. They wanted people to have rights and be able to defend themselves, and not for just one person to make all the decisions and be able to take everything away just because they have a strife against somebody. So this gives the citizens the right to privacy and protection against biased searches. Protection against excessive bail and cruel punishment. So this is found in the Eighth Amendment, and it states, "Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted." This amendment protects citizens against the government imposing inhumane punishments and sentencings against them. So this means that there should be enough evidence in a trial that supports the punishments given. So cruel treatment cannot be given to citizens. So this means that somebody can't just go and be an inmate just because they're an inmate. Every citizen, regardless of what they've done, regardless of if they're a bad person, they still deserve to be treated like a human being. And you deserve the right to be treated with respect, regardless of what you've done. Now, some might not agree with that, but that's how it is. So, protection against self-incrimination. This is found in the Fifth Amendment, and it means that one person cannot condemn or sentence you. A person cannot be sentenced a punishment or fine unless it comes from a judge and an unbiased jury. This also protects citizens from being charged for the same act twice. So next we'll be talking about the citizens' responsibilities. This includes embrace and protect the Constitution, be involved in your community, vote, obey the law, honor the choices of others, be active within your community, pay your taxes, report for jury duty if and when called upon, join and serve at arms to protect this country and its citizens if called upon. So you can kind of see how the citizens' responsibilities tie into the citizen rights with vote. That's a responsibility, but it's also a right. Embrace and protect the Constitution. If you do not protect this Constitution, this government can fall. If you do not embrace it and follow it, then you're not going to have them rights and you won't have responsibilities, and history will just repeat itself with things that have happened. So I want to end with this quote before we go on to Michael's part that says, "Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," and this is found in the United States Declaration of Independence.
3 branches of the U.S. government: logistic branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Legislative branch job responsibilities. Most important job is to make laws. Laws are written, discussed, and voted on in Congress. This branch includes Congress, the Senate, and House of Representatives. Senate. There are 2 elected senators per state, totaling 100 senators. A senator's term is 6 years, and there is no limit to the number of terms an individual can serve. House of Representatives. There are 435 elected representatives, which are divided among the 50 states in proportion to their total population. There are additional non-voting delegates who represent the District of Columbia and the territories. A representative serves a 2-year term, and there is no limit to the number of terms an individual can serve. Executive branch responsibilities. Carries out and enforces laws. Includes the President, Vice President, the Cabinet, executive departments, independent agencies, and other boards, commissions, and committees. American citizens have the right to vote for the President and Vice President through free, confidential ballots. President. The President leads the country. He or she is the head of state, leader of the federal government, and Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. The President serves a 4-year term and can be elected no more than 2 times. Vice President. The Vice President supports the President. If the President is unable to serve, the Vice President becomes President. The Vice President can be elected and serve an unlimited number of 4-year terms as Vice President, even under a different President. The Cabinet. Cabinet members serve as advisors to the President. They include the Vice President, heads of executive departments, and other high-ranking government officials. Cabinet members are nominated by the President and must be approved by a simple majority of the Senate, 51 votes if all 100 senators vote. Judicial branch responsibilities. Interprets the meaning of laws, applies laws to individual cases, and decides if laws violate the Constitution. It's comprised of the Supreme Court and other federal courts. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States. The justices of the Supreme Court are nominated by the President and must be approved by the Senate. 9 members make up the Supreme Court: a Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices. They must be a minimum or quorum of 6 justices to decide a case. If there is an even number of justices and a case results in a tie, the lower court's decision stands. There is no fixed term for justice. They serve until their death, retirement, or removal in exceptional circumstances. Federal courts and judicial agencies. The Constitution gives Congress the authority to establish other federal courts to handle cases that involve federal laws, including tax and bankruptcy, lawsuits involving U.S. and state government or the Constitution, and more. Other federal judicial agencies and programs support the courts and research judicial policies. Elections into office. Legislative. Senate. 2 people from each state are voted on upon the people. House. Must be 25 years old, U.S. citizen for at least 7 years, and an inhabitant of the state they reside, based on population of state. Executive. President elected by the people for the U.S. Vice President elected by the people for the U.S. of the U.S. The cabinet nominated by the President and approved by Senate. Judicial. Supreme Court nominated by President, approved by Senate. Federal courts voted upon the people. How they all work together. Separation of powers. Separation of powers refers to the division of government responsibilities into district branches to limit any one branch from exercising the core function of another. The intent is to prevent the concentration of power and provide for checks and balances. Checks and balances. The point of check and balances was to make sure no one branch would be able to control too much power, and it creates a separation of powers. Examples. The legislative branch makes laws, but the president and the executive branch can veto those laws by the presidential veto. The president is an executive branch can veto a law, but the legislative branch can override that veto with enough votes. The judicial branch interprets laws, but the Senate and the legislative branch confirms the president's nomination for judicial positions, and Congress can approve any of those judgments and remove them from office. Linkage instructions. What they are, how do they function? Overview. Linkage instructions is short. It is an easy way for an average citizen to connect to his or her representative. Linkage instructions are not formally part of the government. However, they do play a big role in how our political system operates. The 4 types of linkage instructions include interest groups, media, elections, and political parties. How they operate. Interest groups. These groups basically are representing a specific topic and or group of people with similar thoughts, processes. Some of these groups include the National Rifle Association, the National Organization of Women, and the United Farm Workers of America. These groups play a role in the government by raising money for the candidate who supports their mission, or trying to persuade voters to vote or to elect a specific candidate. Media. The media is basically a reporter for politicians. Through social media and news outlets, the media is a valuable source for overall news about politicians, what laws have been passed, debates and speeches, and appearances for their constitution. How they operate continued. Elections. This one is pretty straightforward. Elections allow citizens to be involved through voting and polls. For how expensive elections can be, the process for electing government officials provides citizens with important information regarding issues and candidates, qualifications for office. Political parties. These parties contain broad points of view that present